Good morning and welcome, everyone. So excited to have you all here for our the Mind Trust. It's a really long name, right? The Mind Trust Virtual School Support Fair. So I'm going to bring Kelly Marshall, our illustrious leader, to the stage to give y'all a welcome and kind of let you know how things are, what she feels and her vision for this. So Kelly, let me bring. All right, there you are.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I'm just wowed by the floors, right? So I was telling Paula before I logged on, I said, Paula, I think I'm lost in the building. But I want to take this opportunity first to welcome each and every one of you to. It's technically not our first virtual expo, but it is the first one leveraging this type of format. And we hope to continue doing things like this just to make bringing partners and schools together more strategically. Again, for those of you that don't know me, I am Kelly Marshall, the Senior Vice President of Schools here with the Mind Trust. Many of you have already connected with Paula Glover, our Director of Project Management and Recruitment, and huge shout out to her because she is responsible for really putting all of this together. I know she's been on training sessions with a lot of our support partners, and just really want to shout out Paula for all of her hard work. We've got some awesome team members also that have been behind the scenes with this, and we're going to try to find a way to make sure that if you don't know them, Paula can get them popped up on the screen as well, some portion of the day. But we've got our Senior Director of Talent, Sarah Marshall. We have our Senior Director of Incubation, Sonia Peters, and we have our Manager of Incubation as well, Bernadette Monk. Tina Seymour is still also with our team as Senior Director of School Support as well. So, again, I'm super blessed to have such an awesome team and really excited about what you are about to experience. Before we get going, I want to make sure that everyone understands why we're doing this. So, at the Mind Trust, and specifically for our school team, we often have support vendors that come our way and ask if they can get in front of schools. We then have to take that next step of connecting them with schools and then also identifying the needs of the school. We also have the direction, we have the questions coming the other direction where schools will come to us and say, hey, do you know of any support partners that are skilled in this, that, or the other? And, we were thinking, like, you know what, all these one offs, one, are flooding everybody's calendar. But two, there's a way to bring a lot of people together at one time on one platform and allow schools and partners to mingle and share their expertise, and just allow us to be the conduit for that. So that's what we hope to accomplish today. The other thing I want to say is based upon your feedback from today's event, it will determine how frequently we have these types of events, and also if there are any tweaks that we need to make along the way. Some things may get clunky. If you're like me, you may get lost in a floor. Know that we have a help desk. So just simply exit out to the floor, look for where you're trying to go, and double click on it. It should be just that simple. If not, feel free to go over into the chat, and don't contact me because I'll probably still be lost in the stairs. But contact Paula Glover, and she can definitely get you settled into where you need to go. So, without further ado, I want to kick us off. We have 32 support partners logged on today, and our schools are starting to come in as even as I speak. So, welcome to everyone. We're going to kick it off. I think Paula's going to introduce our keynote, but just a brief background. We had been hearing that schools were needing a lot of support or interested in support around our English language learners. And we said that we wanted to find a resource partner out there that had been doing the work for quite some time, and one who we were familiar with and knowing just pretty much our charter sector. Nichole Seal and I worked together at Tinley, where she led our EL work, and I'm going to say even created all of the programming and made sure not just that we were in compliance, but that our students receive the best supports possible. Nichole is now with Perry Township, but she is also making herself accessible and available to our schools. So without further ado, again, I'm going to pass it to Paula, but thank you. Thank you for being here.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much, Miss Kelly. I'm going to pull you back into the audience. If you all want to give her a virtual round of applause, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for all your help and support during this time. Look at all the applause you're getting, Miss Kelly. That's so cool. Anyway, again, my name is Paula Glover. I'm director of school support. I'm not sorry, director of recruitment and project management within our school support department. We do have a keynote today, and that person will be getting started. But before we do that, we're going to have a PowerPoint and a presentation from Ed Rogers. And I just want to give a shout out to the other folks that we have on the line from the Mind Trust. We have Lauren Peterson online here from our community engagement senior director. We have my very good friend Chelsea Reed, one of my favorite people online here, manager of external communications. We also have Ed Ed on the line here, who is going to talk with us today about an internet pilot. Ed is new to our team. He's Ed Rogers. He's the manager of community engagement. Ed, I'm going to bring you to the stage, and I'm going to share my screen with everyone so that you'll be able to interact and talk. So Ed, just bear with me one second while I get you on the screen here. Uh-oh. There you are. It says Edward. It threw me off, Ed. It said Edward. And I was like, I don't know who Edward is, but there you are. It's kind of
Hey,
like when I see Edward for Eddie, too. Okay, there you are. So let me share my screen. If you want to take a moment and introduce.
hey, good morning. Thank you, Paula, for the introduction and welcome everyone. I look forward to connecting with all of our partners. I'll be presenting today some information over a phenomenal resource that's available for all of our schools that are within some coverage areas, and I'll kind of go into more detail about that. Um, Paula, I don't know if you will be handling the presentation or will I need to, but let me know. Again, I'm new to this platform as well, so bear with me as I get familiar with how to work this. Paula, do I need to share my screen or are you
Screen right
sharing?
now? Yeah, I'll just share my screen. You just tell me when to go next slide. Will that work for you?
Yeah, so if we can go to the main slide. Okay, is the main slide up on my end? All I see is my face. Okay, so if you can go to slideshow, so they can see a full uh, screen of it. Okay, so I'll just start it from here. The Internet Indynet pilot. This is a program that was introduced early of 2021, but this is a resource for all of our schools to be able to take advantage to give high quality internet access to our the families that are within our partner schools and also schools within the coverage area. Next slide. Next slide.
Maybe a lag on
Okay.
my end.
I think what I'm gonna do is just share my screen.
That will probably be perfect. And I apologize. There may be a lag on my end, Ed. So I apologize.
Okay.
You're okay. You're good on time. And I would share the window.
Okay, so I just shared my screen. I don't know if everyone can see it.
It may take it a minute.
Okay.
Share at the bottom here.
Yes, I did. I clicked
Okay.
share and I
Okay.
select screen to share
Uh huh.
and, and I press share.
Hmm. Doesn't seem to be pulling up. Hold on. I have a fix.
Okay.
Hmm. It might be better to share it within Google Slides. So I'm going to quickly put it in Google Slides for you. And that might be the quicker way to do it than sharing it through Microsoft. Sometimes the board doesn't like Microsoft. So hold on.
Okay. And actually, I had shared it through Google Slides. I was sharing it as a presentation mode.
Hmm. Everyone, we appreciate your patience. Just bear with us one more second. There it goes. My computer's starting to make the fan noise, so we're going to pray. Okay. And then we'll do it this way.
Okay.
I'll do it through my tab. And let's see what that does for us. Can you see it?
All I see is you and I see myself.
Okay, hold
Okay.
on. It's still working. You see it now?
Yes.
And do you see it now? It's
Oh,
loading
it's
into
low.
slideshow. Uh-huh.
Okay. I think we have it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. No problem. So yes, I'm glad we got that figured out. So yeah, our Indynet Internet Pilot is a program that was launched in 2021. It was designed to provide free at-home internet service to students of participating Indianapolis area schools. This initiative enjoys the support of several individual organizations working to improve education access and experience for individuals in Indianapolis. Next slide. And so these are all of our partner organizations that's making this opportunity possible. Next slide. Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the challenges that many Indianapolis students faced when it came to obtaining and maintaining connectivity, and it required to keep up with the schoolwork on the virtual environment. As schools seek solutions to keep their students safe, yet actively engaging with their students, it is critical for those who are challenged by the need to connect to the internet at home and not left behind. Through this free wireless internet program, Indynet is seeking to partner with schools in our area to help students meet their connectivity needs. Next slide. And so you guys will see a list of the coverage areas that fall within our internet pilot range, and also all of our partner schools that have been part of this program. And that is George Washington High School, Harrison Hill Elementary, Ivy Tech, Riverside High School, Southport Elementary School, Vision Academy at Riverside, and Winchester Elementary. Next slide, please. Households with current students who reside in these available coverage areas are eligible to participate in this program. The network uses wireless technology, similar to the technology that lets us browse the web on our smartphones, to provide high speed internet access to participating households. We're still in the testing phase of this program, and this program is expected to last through the summer of 2022. But for those who live in the area, in the coverage area, all that's required to participate is a receiver that will be installed at home. And as you see, these are the different receivers that a family would receive, and it's provided free of charge. And to receive service, all is needed is an access code once the installment is complete. And those who live near a network site may get a receiver that can be placed inside their home, which will provide a stronger signal and is often available closer to the site. And those who live far away will get a receiver that goes outside of their home. These devices are simple to use and can be made available for any family, regardless if you own or rent your home. Next slide, please. And so, um, you want to know, is our students eligible to participate? Yes, if you live within these coverage areas that is highlighted on the screen. So as you see, the pilot Indy network has 5 towers in 3 Indianapolis neighborhoods and are currently operating for use. And students residing in these available coverage areas are eligible to participate. So for some of our partners that are on the call today, if you live within these coverage areas or is your school is within this coverage area, I would love to connect with you to provide you more information how you can get this info out to your students and families. Next slide, please. As a strategic partner in the Indynet pilot program, the Mind Trust is promoting this program to area families with school age children through our community events, school outreach, and broad based efforts, and also social media to assist the interest in the Internet pilot and offer opportunities to participate to those who are eligible. And so, how do you register? Well, here's a link to register. If you see on this page, it shows the ways of registering. It's very simple and easy. All you just do is a student or a family will put their name, their home address, the school that they're attending. If they're not part of one of the partner schools, they can select other and just put in that school in there. And then you will just submit. And then within 5 days, you will get a installment date from our broadband vendor, and they will set up a date for installment, and then you will be on your way to free high speed internet. Next slide. And so this is just a full layout of what the sign up form looks like. Again, it's very simple and easy. It's offered in English and Spanish as well. Next slide. And so if you would like more information about how you could participate, please come visit me at on floor two. No, I'm sorry, floor one, table 7. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed, for that information. So, for our partners that are on the line, if you know of any of your students that are residing within those areas, you can go ahead and get them signed up for that free internet. So, that's awesome. So, thank you so much for that information, Ed. And again, he will be on floor 1. He will be able to take those questions from you and be able to share that information with you. Awesome sauce. So now we will transition to one of the most awesome people I've ever met. She is just totally cool people. She knows her stuff. She knows how to explain it. She's our keynote today. Her name is Nichole Seal. The things that I know about Nichole, she is passionate about kids. She's passionate about getting them where they need to be. And she's also passionate about being inclusive in their learning. So without further ado, Miss Nichole, you have the mic. You have the ability to share. So we'll go ahead and let her have the floor. If you have questions, I am going to be manning the chat. We have a Q&A portion. If you click on that Q&A, you'll be able to ask questions and we'll get started. So Nichole, have at it.
Thank
Everyone
you.
give her a round of applause.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to say thank you to Paula and Kelly for their kind words, and I'm going to try to live up to the hype. They are right about one thing. I am very passionate about ELs, and you will see that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's see here. Share there,
We can see it.
and now because I'm sharing, I won't be able to see you. But does that look okay, Miss Paula?
We're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the point of today is to level up our EL program with accountability and compliance. And we all know that compliance is that, basement part of what we do with anything, but we have to start there, right? We have to start with that strong foundation so that kids can get whatever they need. And that's what I'm going to try to do today because there are some changes coming up and I want to make sure that you all are aware. So, just real quick about me. Oh, I am passionate about ELs. I have four siblings who are adopted from other countries, and so that idea of other and culturally and linguistically diverse people is just part of how I was raised. And so, I saw the great things that happened when they were in school, and then I also saw the things that weren't so great for some of them. And I saw how opportunities and accessibility and the right instruction can open the pathway, literally pathways. And one example of that is my sister. She's trilingual and she's a lawyer. So definitely some amazing school, different, there were just a lot of successes for her. And then some of my other siblings didn't have the same thing. Like one of my siblings was retained two times. And it's not because he isn't incredibly intelligent. He is. And he actually did graduate from college and actually had a football scholarship. But when he was in school, I mean, that was really hard for him. And so he had to overcome a lot. So a lot of what EL is about that accessibility piece and removing barriers or giving correct scaffolds. So that's just part of it. As Kelly said, I was coordinator, so I've set up EL programs, and I've also been a teacher. I've been an IA. I've been a sub. Now I'm a district coach, and also I've been a professor. So I think all of those things together, the main thing that I would say really works for ELs is shared ownership, because as the EL person, I don't know all the things, but when we work together, that's whenever great things happen for kids. That's what I've seen every single time. So, as a leader of your building, or even a vendor that's on this call, I just encourage you to really perk up and think about, how does this apply to me? And this is really about, what do you need? So I just encourage you to have that reflective mindset in everything that we're doing. And I'm going to try to remind myself to pause so that you can write down some things. And then all of my slides and resources will be available at my table at the end. I'll tell you where my table is, and you can come visit me and you can grab my slides and all my resources, and maybe also book a time with me to chat and just next steps. So that's kind of the overview. Now let's talk about what I really want to talk about, which is our purpose for today. So we're going to kind of start out with the why. So there are new English learner requirements from IDOE coming out, and they come out in September. And as I was talking to some schools in the Mind Trust, that in that purview, there were a lot of schools that did not know that. And so I didn't think that was fair because we can't change the rules and then people not know. So that's kind of how this came about. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about student performance and school accountability, and then compliance to start 2022-23. And then also, how are you going to set that up? So there's going to be a little bit of time for you to reflect and think about who needs to be on your team as you're going into that next level for ELs. And then bonus, I love a language objective. So I want us to be able to use the term EL and ML confidently. And just so you know, I'm going to switch in between those two terms. So an EL is an English learner, and ML, which is what I'm challenging myself to use, which would be multilingual, which is really what our students are. They speak multiple languages, and that's more of an asset-based mentality. And the way that we talk about students matters. So that's something that I think that we can, if that's the one thing you take from today, I count it as a win, and just making sure that we're speaking in an asset-based way about our students and our families. So I'll move to the next slide. Paula, also feel free to interrupt me if you get a great question. It's totally fine. Um, so here's just a brief overview. If you're a visual person, I wanted this for you. So an overview, what EL isn't, accountability changes, and then ELTOR requirements. And then we're going to go into identifying your building needs and then mapping your timeline. And also there's some goodies at the end that I'm going to share with you. So one thing that you may not be aware of is that there are ELTOR requirements for September 1st. So before now, there has been a thing where like you just had to share with DOE what your plan was for English learners. And now you have to have an EL teacher. Some of you might be freaking out right now, but it's okay. So that's why we're talking about it now. So we've got 6 months. There is a rubric. So there's a couple different ways to get that certification, but there is a rubric if you have a teacher who has been doing EL services for a long time and then they don't have it. There's a couple different ways that they can get to like 100 points on the rubric, and I have those links here. And the main thing I wanted to talk about is effective EL services and what that looks like. So the Office of Civil Rights, they've had findings and they have cited schools that are not giving 30 to 45 minutes of EL instruction 4 to 5 times a week. And I actually think it's more like 45 minutes. So what does that look like? And then they've also cited schools for doing too much ELD, so English language development. So they've cited schools for both of these extremes. So it's really what they're saying is what's effective for students is that EL is a tier 1 instructional plan. So some of you may be saying, no, it's tier 2. No, it is part of your tier 1 plan. An example of that might be co-teaching. An EL teacher going into the reading block, and maybe instead of doing one teacher table for those elementary students, maybe you have 2 teacher tables and the teacher is pulling students doing that ELD. That would be a great example of what that programming could look like, and a great way to leverage expertise of the content, the classroom teacher, and the EL teacher. For high school, what that can look like is co-teaching, but it's got to be effective. For high school, we also have some things where we can pull EL credits. Most of you know this. You can pull the ENL class, and that can actually be part of their credits for their pathway. So there's some flexibility in there. But really what I want you to think about is how are you making sure that the English learners in your building have tier 1 English language development? What is that? I'll speak to some buildings have a high number of ELs, so that's going to change the way you do it, right? So if you have 100 EL students, then maybe that's going to look like all of your teachers have done some sort of training like PSYOP training, and then they're all doing that EL accountability, and then your tier 2 is your English language specialist doing one-on-one services. So if anything I just said was confusing to you, write a note and say slide 5, Nichole, ? And come talk to me because I'll clarify it, or book a meeting with me because I want to make sure that you understand that piece. There's lots of different ways to make it work for your building. So with accountability and compliance, there are some pretty like clear rules, but we got to make sure that it works with your building too. So just be aware. There's also an FAQ page on DOE, and I linked that there too. So you can go through and it kind of answers some of these questions. I hope none of you are scared. So as we're talking about accountability, I've been going back and forth with the DOE Office of Accountability last week, and they've actually taken some things off of the, if you go to DOE Compass and you can pull up your building, because I was going to show you guys this, but they've taken it down for access, WIDA access, which shows our English language proficiency. So there is a bill on the floor in our state house right now to just forego all state grades and just use federal accountability. So this is my most recent information as of, I think it was Monday of this week. So we don't know if that's going to pass. I have no idea what's going on with the state house right now, but this is what could happen. So this is the federal accountability. And if you see this little blue, dark blue slice, this is English language progress, on both. And so this is K8 and 9 through 12. And so if you are familiar with WEED at all, you know that it is a deep test, and that's what it's basing on. It's not based on iLearn. It's not based on pathways like this little blue slice. It is based on WEDA and their performance from year to year. And the state has those targets, and they are rigorous. The expectation is that students are exiting in 5 to 6 years. And when they're not, that is counted against you. So this slice may not look like a lot, but I don't think a lot of us have, if you just don't care about kids and you just care about numbers, we don't have that much to just say, oh, we're not going to worry about it. Because I also want to point out all of the kids that would be categorized in this area would also fall in these other areas. So let's just say you're a heartless person and you just care about numbers. Strengthening your EL program is going to have a big impact in all of these categories in both. You probably already know that, but I just wanted to point that out, that if we have an EL, they're going to count in all of these. So really incredible. And I think that's the main message, is that for a long time, there has been a recommendation from DOE of saying, here's how you serve ELs. And no longer is it a recommendation. It is, it is the basement. We have to do this. And then what's great instruction goes on top of that. We can talk about that, but let's get the basement done. And so I just wanted to show you that. And, we are still figuring out what that accountability is going to look like based on access scores this year. But they're figuring that out literally right now. Okay. Oh, no. It's linked to if you wanted that page. Can you still see my screen okay? I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I also wanted to talk about this really quickly so I'm a data nerd. And so I've been digging around. And so I was looking at the OEI percentages based on the school evals. And so that core question 4, and for some of you new schools, you haven't done this yet, but there's a core question 4, and you probably know about this, but vendors, maybe you don't, and maybe this is something you can think about as well. And so this is that question. I'll let you read that. So what do you think the percentage of schools who had this, who met or exceeded this expectation? And this is not with the new accountability rules in place. So this is just really asking, are we fulfilling the legal expectation? So like, again, basement expectation here, right? So, and also 38% of schools that I saw that had a score, many didn't have score, were approaching or did not meet this expectation. And there's no shame in that, right? Like, but it tells us, okay, we've got some work to do. And so many of the schools are well-meaning and they want to serve these students in their neighborhoods, and they're doing great things, but we're not quite to the compliance level. And so how do we move from our hearts being in the right place and that piece of empathy to empowerment of students and staff so that they can do great things, so that they can access the material in a deep way? So that's really what we want to do with accountability and compliance, is like, we want to start here and then keep going. So I'm going to. So I do want to say real quickly, one of the things that when I'm working with buildings who are setting up an EL program, it's very common to hear and because as our brains connect with what we know, right? And many of you leaders are fantastic with special ed and really understand that piece. And so you're going to draw automatically on what you know, which makes a lot of sense. But I want to make sure that we clarify, English learning programs are not an extension of SPED. They're not trumped by SPED. I don't know who said that a long time ago, but that's not true. Both are legal requirements. And there are some students that are dual labeled. And we do have that Venn diagram when there's an overlap. And there's lots of great work that can be done there, because there might be some language stuff we're working on, but maybe there's some cognitive stuff as well. And that's where I really lean on, my special ed experts like Dr. Anderson. And, we would work that out and figure out what that student needs. The other thing too is this is not the EL teachers issue or the Spanish IA's issue. And there's also not a magic bullet. I know that we want that, right? We want this like prepackaged plan. We want to say click, spend. This is what I want, but it's just not that. It's just not that way because these are kids, and they have, vast experiences and needs. And yes, we have to have a program that addresses those. But I just encourage you to keep seeing kids as individuals and what they need. And so all of the ELs in your building should not be receiving the same thing. They should not all be receiving, all ELs in the building all have a pull-out EL class. Um, what if that student's high ability? Are you going to take them out of their high ability class while they're learning EL? I hope not. Maybe you have that co-teacher come in and we talk about what that looks like, or maybe it's co-planning and that's their programming. So there's just a lot, there's a big breadth and a depth of our multilinguals. And I think if we look around, we can see that. So just so you know, 2 years ago, there were 112,000 English learners that were still receiving services in Indiana. It's a lot. And that number is just going up. And there are more and more refugees. There are more and more unaccompanied minors. And I think as the word gets out of the great work that you're doing in your buildings, you're going to start seeing more refugees and you're going to start seeing more unaccompanied minors because many of you are targeting what students need and how to prepare them for that next level of life, whether that be middle school, high school, or a pathway outside of college or career readiness. So as that word gets spread and as you build these programs, you're just going to keep attracting more and more kids. So now is definitely the right time to have these conversations with your staff, with yourself, with your leadership team, and say, here's what we need to do to make sure we're prepared for all of our families. And maybe that's native language support, but I don't think it's only that, right? Like, what's the instruction that we need? We're going to keep going. I don't know why it won't let me move on here. All right, so let's talk about what effective EL programming is. So we kind of talked about what it's not. Let's talk about what it is. And it's shared ownership. I've said this a couple of times, but oh my gosh, if you leave this and you're like, okay, I need my EL team and what that is, I recommend it be, you as the leader. I recommend it being your EL staff member, and I recommend it being some other teachers, classroom teachers in the building, and then other leadership people. If you have a coach, they should be on it too, because each person is going to bring a different lens of what students need. Speaking of, your PD could always have a EL second or a PSYOP second or an EL step out in it, where someone is making a connection to what your English learners need and a way to make this multilingual friendly and what that could look like. One of the buildings I've seen, they have, it was on the east side, they were doing, they had targeted vocab each week for science, and they had a huge Spanish population. Every single time they had those key vocab words, they had them in Spanish too. So they had the English, Spanish, and then they had pictures. Perfect, easy way to make the content accessible for your students. Clarity on roles and programming. So one of the things I think is so important is making sure that everyone knows their role. So it's important, and this is a misconception, I think, that English learner progress is based on the EL teacher's performance. Most of the time, they have those students for 45 minutes a day. So what's happening the rest of the day? You know what I mean? So they have them this much. What about the rest of the time? And who's going to grow them in math? Who's going to grow them in science? Who's going to make sure that they're growing in NWEA? What's that look like? And so again, it goes back to that shared ownership piece. The EL teacher cannot do it all on her own. The IA certainly can't do it all on her own. Amazing people, and just have a bag full of tricks to help students in every area. But it's important that we make sure that everyone knows their role. And also, there need to be clear processes and systems. One of the things that I see on a building who's setting up EL is they're not really sure on identification. Like, how do we identify an English learner? So if that's you right now, if I say the word home language survey and you're like, what? Come talk to me. And say, okay, I don't know what you're talking about on slide 9, and we'll talk about it. But you need to have a clear process for identification, a clear process for assessment. Does this student need English language services. So just because they have a Latin last name doesn't mean that they need EL. It might, but we don't know that. So I think it's important to know what is the process for what that means. And we can't just put kids in EL just because they have a Latin last name. We have to make sure that they are getting what they need. So it's very important that we make sure we have the process. And you, as the leader, really need to understand all of those processes and make sure that you know who's doing what. I really encourage you to make sure that you know who's doing what and everyone can articulate their part of the process. And then just a clear vision. So at the end of 2023 school year, what do you want to have happened with your EL program? Where do you want to be? When you get those access scores back, what do you want that to look like? What do you want your families to say when they're reflecting on the school year, their exit parent survey when they leave your building? Do you want them to say they've been supported? Do you want them to say that they have bought into your vision and your mission for your building, and that their children, or how many kids they have, one child, 9, that they all have access to the high level and rigor that you have in your building? So important. So that's what I think the crux of an effective EL program. And I've seen it in buildings, I've seen it in a network, and then I've also seen it, in a massive district. So it could be 10 kids. Those 10 kids still deserve all of those things. Or it could be 250. It doesn't matter. Every single kid that walks through our building deserves to have this high level of expectation together. All right, so all of those things, but what does it look like? What does it look like to have that shared vision? So I would say it's an administrator knows that quality English language development looks like, and they can see it. And so one of the things I've seen is I've had a principal tell me, I don't know what a good EL lesson looks like. And I think that's a powerful place to start, right? That awareness piece. But I think as a leader, as an evaluator, challenging yourself to make sure you know what it looks like and talk to me, I'll help you out. And that's one of the coaching things we can do too, is how do we know it's effective? What are the students doing? Not just what the teacher's doing, but what are the students doing that we know that they're learning? How are they making their thinking visible? All those things. And I get really jazzed about that. So that's so important. And how can I empower you to make sure that you feel confident and competent in challenging your staff and pushing your staff in that way? And then, making sure that that you're trained. So not just compliance, but moving past that. What's the best practice? What does that look like? And how do we get everyone moving in that direction? So important. And what it sounds like is our classroom teachers and our English language development or multilingual teachers working together. And what I mean by that is, I get pretty jazzed about this too. We don't want adults in the building just, walking a hole in the carpet. That's not a good use of our money, right? Like, we all want more funding, but that's not a good use of time. But what does it look like to really put our heads together, really have true co-planning, really have true co-teaching? What does that look like? And seeing that, I think, is huge. And that's a great indicator that you're moving into best practice, or you're doing best practice for English learners, because our EL specialist can give you a quick little tweak about, oh, hey, if you do your vocab like this, more kids will get it. Let's go, oh, that's easy. Exactly. Just a little tweak here and there. Leveraging the experts in your building is huge. But you shouldn't have your ELD teachers teaching outside of their content either, because I love math, but I don't think anybody wants me teaching algebra. Okay, I can help, but I don't think we have to make sure we're leveraging people the right way. And then hearing the word our students when we're talking about ELs, that's one way that you can cue that this is a collective, these are our students in our building. They're not just the EL teachers, not just going to send them down the hallway. Collectively, these are our students. What are we going to do for our students? Look at our students, they're rocking it. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear. And that's when you know that it's becoming a collective efficacy and you're moving that way. I'm going to take a quick little pause here and hear these words from Dr. Angelou. I'll let you read those. So I hope that those moved you. That all of her quotes moved me. She has such a command of language, but just a reminder again, the way that we talk about students, and I would say our teachers too, and each other, matters. And we are telling students every day who they are, right? And so if we say, oh, they can't do anything, or they don't know anything, or they don't know any English, they know what you're saying. They understand that. And so you're putting a negative expectation on them. And that just goes against everything that what we came into education for, right? I'm going to put us all together. We all came into education to push kids, to inspire, to help them grow. So we need to be talking about them in an asset-based language. We need to say, "Oh my gosh, you speak another language? My Spanish is terrible and I know about this much Hebrew, but you speak a whole other language? That's amazing." How can we leverage that? And then also understanding that, depending on how fluent they already have the pathways laid in their brain to be able to access English. They just need to be explicitly taught that. And it's powerful. So in the words of Dr. Angelou, like making sure that we are cognizant of how we're speaking to students and how we're speaking about ourselves too. So if you're one of the people in this call that don't understand everything I'm saying, there's no shame in that. And awareness is a great place to start. And let's move to the next level. Like there's no negative shame or anything there. So what do we do next? We've talked about accountability. We talked about what's next. Here's where I think that you should go. Get your vision. I would say with your team, with your EL team. If you don't already have an EL team in your building, start thinking about who that would be. And then who's doing what. Start talking about like, where do we want to be? What's that big vision at the end of 2023 and beyond? And then work on timelines. And I have a couple of tools for you to kind of help with that. So many of you already use the SWOT analysis, but I've seen this be really effective. And I actually use this with a lot of the EL teachers and the EL teams that I work with in all of our buildings. And we found it to be very powerful. And, talking about what you're already doing really well, many of you already are doing fantastic things for your English learners and already have really strong curriculum and tier one instruction and amazing teachers. I've seen it. So how do we leverage that? And I think that language is very, really helpful. So what do we need to do next? What's missing? So based on that new accountability and, these new requirements, what do we need? What's the training? Who needs to be brought in? Maybe no one, but what do we need? And then what are the possible pitfalls? Thinking through all of those things, I think make it so that starts creating that shared ownership, that shared vision. So that's just one of the tools that I have for you. And then also, so here's a timeline for you. This is what I would recommend. So you'll see today we are talking through an awareness of the new requirements and the key team members to help you plan for English learners in your building. I would schedule a data meeting to look at your current students and is it working? So this is where I'm going to say maybe it's okay to be a little bit blunt and pull off the Band-Aid because, from truth we can grow, right? So let's pull all of the NWA or, if you use Evaluate or whatever tool you have, just pull all the English learners compared to all your other students. How are they stacking up? Is there one teacher that's, having amazing growth with her students or his students in math? And then what does that look like? What are they doing? And, start leveraging the people in the building that, really know what they're doing. If you don't have that, that's good. Let's bring someone in and help look at that. Let's, get deeper. And so that's what I would say in March. What does that look like right now? WIDA scores will drop at the end of April or the beginning of May. So if you are a school that has a lot of students that just took access, those scores will be out then. And that's another time to look at your data. Like how did they grow and did they meet their target? I would also suggest in April that you have a plan for your ELTOR for next year and that they have that certification. And you can still do an emergency certification, but I think there are new parameters on what that looks like. So I think just figuring that out, and then plan the summer PD for all staff for EL. So I think, depending on where your building is at with English learners and multilinguals, there's always room to grow. So I think that's important. And we're all in different spaces in that. And that's okay. But just being real honest about, okay, here's where we're at. And also, maybe we don't compare ourselves to the neighbor down the street, but we say, okay, what can we do even better? And, just really evaluating that clear vision. Um, School leaders, making sure that you understand and can implement exemplary EL instruction. So I'm going to challenge you to in June, be thinking about, can I articulate as a leader when I see solid EL instruction? Do I know what that looks like? If not, that's okay. But what are we going to do to figure that out? Talk to me. You know, finalize that implementation for staff ELPD. How will you monitor EL efficacy? So this is important in August, July and August. You're going to be doing new enrollments. Do you have those identification and assessment materials in place? Do you have all those processes in place? What does that look like? And then, are you compliant and on your way to best practice? So like September 1st is that deadline again for our ELTOR requirements. So what's our timeline for that, and are we on that way? So I'm trying to help you out here. You don't have to do it that way, but just a tool to help you. And then I'm finished a little early, so I have time for questions, but also I have one more slide. I have extra goodies for you. But if you want to talk to me, you can email me. You can tweet me. I will be on floor 2, table 10, and you can also book me for a 30-minute chat. And the other thing is I have these little goodies for you as well. So if you're not familiar with the EL guidebook from DOE, I would encourage you to download that, and it does have some visuals in there. And then also, if you're not using Slides Carnivals, if you liked this, they're free. If you don't know about it, maybe there's one person doesn't. And then here's my little goodie. Come to my table and I'll share that with you. But this is a Latinx Kidlit Book Festival book list, and it's got thousands of books, and it's divided by grade level, interest level, and reading level, and also representation. And we all know that representation matters. So as our EL population grows in Indianapolis, and as we get more and more students, and that's going to happen, I think that we can start thinking about how are we making sure that all of our students are represented. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. I finished a little early, so I think we've got some questions.
Yeah, so hey Nichole, great job. I just wanted to reiterate if we can give Nichole a round of applause. That was absolutely fabulous. So a couple of things that I wrote down, y'all, was around asset-based language. I wrote that down because I hadn't heard that yet. So I was like, ooh, love it. The shared ownership piece, one size does not fit all. And what you were talking about with the words, the English, Spanish, and then the pictures, the inclusivity of it all, having those clear processes and systems. And then I wrote this quote down because I thought it was remarkable. From truth, we can grow. And that is just everything to me. I think that you've answered the questions. Yeah. I think that you answered the questions that were in the chat, because it was more around the high ability ML learner. What does that look like? Where I want to encourage y'all to do, though, any burning questions that you have in your heart for Nichole, come visit her on floor 2, table 10. She will be able to answer those questions. If you go into the networking floor, you would be able to book time with her by clicking on her little bubble with her beautiful face, to be able to book that time with her up to 30 minutes, as well as interact with her on LinkedIn and her email. Also, every attendee here will get a vendor list with all the information from the vendors as far as who to contact, their websites, etc. So again, round of applause for Nichole. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. There was one question. Do I have time to answer that one?
Go ahead.
Okay. I saw one about multilinguals and high ability, and then the ML and SPED overlap.
Mm-hmm.
So believe it or not, they kind of, you can come at them from the same lens. So for example, if we have a student who comes from another country, has been like, I had a student like this. She came from Mexico, has been in school the entire time, and she was just a math genius. So the language piece, I mean, she scored a level 1 on her English. But her math skills, when I, assessed her when she came in, she was rocking it and she was ready for the next level in math. So we put her in there, but I was giving her language support on what that looks like. And the teacher and I, the math teacher and I, were really being really intentional about, what does this look like as far as, polynomials, what is that word in Spanish? And then she was like, oh, I can do that. But we just had to break it down and remove some of those barriers for her that were language, but the skills she could do. I mean, this rockin' in math, like genius. So that's one way to look at it. And then also thinking about how we can make sure that all of our students are represented in STEM. We know that there's so many scholarship opportunities for our students of color and that are multilingual. There are so many opportunities there. So we got to make sure we give them those opportunities in K-12. So then they have options when they're ready to go to college and out into the world. The same kind of thing with special ed. For many years, there was an over-identification of English learners because people didn't know what to do with them. So they said, well, they're not doing this, so let's test them for special ed. And so they would just get the special ed label. Now we've kind of gone the other way. Now a lot of our English learners are underrepresented. So they're not being tested because people are like, well, I don't know if it's language or cognitive, or maybe they just haven't been in school, which is very common. So, it's a lot of the MTSS. So let's do this intervention. Are we going to make the gains? Are we going to see improvement? Is this working, right? Because a scaffold is there so that a building can be built, right? So as scaffolds move and, they make it so as we're building the structure, it's supporting it. And so we want to make sure the scaffolds are in place for a little while, and then we can take them away and see if the foundation is there. So that's really what both of these things can be. And so, in a lot of the situations I see in multilinguals and special ed, we got to think about the whole child. What does this kid need? What's their family background? And we have a lot of students that, in my township, that are both, and that's okay. And so we do native language support, and we do case conferences in their native language, and then we give language support in the classroom, and then we also do special ed services to make sure that they get everything that they need. And it really depends on the student, but making sure that you have that relationship between the ELTOR and the TOR, very important. Again, shared ownership, yeah. So I hope that answers your question. If not, come to my table. We can talk about it more too. Or book a time with me. Thank you, Ms.
Awesome.
Paula.
You're welcome. Another round of applause for Nichole. I'm going to have you go back into anonymity for a second. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. So you've had your keynote. You might want to go stretch your legs, but before you do, we're going to head back into what's called the networking floor. So the networking floor, as you all that logged on a little early, you were able to see, is a floor view of everything that we have. For our virtual fair, we have 3 floors, count them, 3 floors for you to choose from. The first floor is like a networking floor. It's where you can go to have conversations with people. We have CE there to chat about the Internet pilot. We also have the wonderful Danny Neal that will be available on floor 1 to chat with you about the Indy Summer Learning Labs. Sarah Marshall will be there, our Senior Director of Talent, and we also have Teach Indy as one of our sponsors to provide information about our Educators Conference. I'll be in Paula's playground. You can join me there if you want to chat with me. I'm sure Kelly will be lost on whatever floor she's on. Go find her and grab her. You have the ability to interact as much as you want. We also have wonderful vendors here, and the floors are set up, and you'll see on the right-hand side how the floors are set up. If you're interested in staff in student enrichment, what floor do you go on? If you're interested in PD, what floor do you go on? If you need some deep instruction, what floor do you go on? Now, our floor vendors will log on at 10:15, but some of them are already online and ready to talk with you. I wanted to provide you all 10 minutes to kind of rest, get your coffee, get your tea, take a bio break, or whatever that looks like for you. As always, you can chat me, you can chat Bernadette, and how you chat. If you look in the bottom there, it says chat. And you can send us a chat and information of anything that you have questions. Bernadette will be located. Oh, Kelly says she's still in the stairs. That made me laugh, Kelly. Bernadette will be located at a help desk if you just want to say hello to her and meet us. You'll also notice on the floors, there's like these private rooms for 2 people. Let's say you want to talk to Kelly Marshall about that $1 million idea that you have. You can ask Kelly to meet you, and it's not called Hoosier Dome anymore. Sarah Marshall had to get me up to speed. I still call it the Hoosier Dome because I'm old. It's now called, what was it, Sarah? Lucas Oil. You can meet, you all can meet in Lucas Oil. You can go meet in Gamebridge to be able to have those conversations. You'll also notice at the bottom, there's like these solo areas. If you just need to take a moment, go sit in solo land and rest your feet like you would do during any other expo. But again, y'all, we are so excited. We're going to head into the networking floor. I'm going to stop recording. And again, you feel free to go and visit and learn more and network. If y'all have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you.